Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm Coach Liz, and welcome to the Self-Love Lounge, where we're about to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and all things love, which you know is my favorite. In this cozy corner of the podcast world, we're going to dive deep into the conversations that matter most to us: love, relationships, and the beautiful chaos of everyday life. Picture this as your safe haven, a space where you can be unapologetically you. Whether you're sipping your favorite tea, out on a walk, or multitasking through life's craziness, this is your place to hit pause, breathe, and connect. I've been a transformative life coach now for just 1 year, and let me tell you, the journey to self-love is messy, it's real, and it's incredibly rewarding. In the Self-Love Lounge, we're going to share stories, explore challenges, and find inspiration in the everyday moments that shape us. It's like a cozy chat with your best friend, who just happens to be your coach, sprinkled with a little touch of magic. So grab your favorite blanket, get comfy, and let's embark on this beautiful journey together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Love Lounge, where we are going to dive into an amazing episode with the one and only Allison Dagney, a radiant force of positivity and resilience who has transformed her life's journey into a beacon of hope and empowerment. As a survivor of covert narcissistic abuse, Allison found herself called to write her story, the memoir, When Tears Leave Scars. Shortly after the book's success, she came upon her true calling as an emotional abuse recovery coach, specializing in elevating women's healing to new heights through the power of subconscious mind. With a passion for helping others overcome hidden emotional abuse, Allison employs a proven method that dismantles blocks and paves the way for lasting results. Certified in trauma-informed care, she guides individuals beyond their trauma, facilitating a journey towards profound healing. Allison's infectious enthusiasm is not just limited to her professional life. It radiates through every aspect of her being. Nestled in the heart of the Midwest, Allison shares her life with her longtime boyfriend, her 3 amazing children, and their cherished rescue dog. When she's not guiding others on their healing journey, you can find her immersed in the joys of nature, creating beautiful memories with her family, and of course, weaving her inspiring words into tales of triumph. Join Allison on this uplifting edition as she continues to inspire and empower. Bringing awareness to covert narcissistic abuse and offering a guiding light for those seeking strength to break free. Let her story be a testament to the transformative power of resilience and the unwavering spirit that emerges. Allison, it is amazing. We're so excited to have you on today, and thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to hearing all the things. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, this bio says a lot, but tell us a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. I really appreciate that. You covered a lot in that introduction. Spot on. I love being here, especially on the Self-Love Lounge, right? Because one thing that I didn't have in my life was self-love for a really long time. And just being in this space with you is so wonderful, because I feel like the self-love, because that was such a key piece that was missing for me. And now that I have that and I've created that for myself, that's what I want other people to have more of too, right? Because my story has, just so many different elements of abuse. And I think that had I had more of that self-love from the beginning, it would have prevented a lot of those things from happening to me. So I love what you do, and I love that you're having these kinds of conversations, and thank you for having me here.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Yeah, the road to self-love, I was thinking about this, and it's like a journey, right, of 1,000 steps, because a lot of us aren't necessarily, we don't, get taught how to love ourselves. And
No, we
it's a lot that I talk about.
don't.
So tell us what you believe impacted that lack of self-love in your life.
Well, because I've done a lot of self work and a lot of self development and healing throughout, the time after my marriage ended. One of the things that I feel like, as looking back, was of course, my childhood, and I would describe my childhood as very good. It was a very happy, like, good childhood, and I had two wonderful parents and siblings, and um, it was there was something that happened as a child for me that I was constantly yearning for approval from my parents, because I think it was about me needing to achieve more, be more, do more, um, be better, right? In order to feel acceptance and love, right? So it wasn't just about just being general, just being average, just being me in those kinds of terms. It was, I would get accolades, affirmations, and, applause for when I did more, for when I did, got the blue ribbons, or got the great grades, or got the note home from the teacher, right? That's when I got noticed. And so I think, part of that programming that was instilled in me from a very young age, I don't mean that like my parents didn't like clap for me and build me up, like they did, but I learned very early on that I got more of what I desired if I just did more, right? And so I think that I just carried that throughout my whole life. And then when I ended up in the relationship with my now ex, it was the same pattern. It was always wanting to feel good enough to get that validation. And so I was constantly trying to do more. Now, I don't know if your listeners, probably a lot of your listeners are familiar with narcissism and narcissistic abuse, but you can't ever reach their expectations. So it was like this perfect little combination of me being this like eternal people pleaser, and him never, validating me in that way. So it was just like this treadmill that I was on, that I was never getting anywhere. So I think that that's kind of where it started for me was, and I think probably for a lot of us, it always does start somewhere in childhood. And there are these like undiscovered things that have happened to us, or these subconscious types of things that go on based on our experiences and our traumas, and whatever we've been made to believe or programmed with as kids. And then that definitely impacts us as adults. So that's where I think my lack of self-love came from, because I was like always trying to get somebody to love me from the outside.
Yeah, and that is definitely something we see quite often. I know for myself too. Um, and it's not something that we're aware of or conscious of. I believe it's just something that happens. It's like this pattern that's kind of created subconsciously, that we're just constantly yearning for that. But of course, parents do the best they can, right?
Sure.
They're imperfect people. There's no guidebook. They're just doing the best they can. And we quickly learn how to get attention. And in doing that, we carry that, to your point, into our adult life. And then we notice that start kind of coming out in our relationships. So, that kind of brings to the next thing. Talk to us a little bit about the relationship with your ex, the narcissism, some of the things that, now you can see as red signs, and how can, our listeners identify some red flags for that, as far as things that they might want to look out for.
Yeah. Okay. So, when I first met him, I was very young. I was only 19 years old, and he was very charming, had a really good job, was really intelligent, and had great success in school, came from a good family, was religious. I mean, picture perfect, really. Was average looks, wasn't like super duper handsome or anything, but like I was attracted to him. And we had a very quick, fast moving relationship in the beginning. And there was a lot of love bombing. And at the time, of course, I didn't know. I mean, this was back in the 2000, no, wait, 90. Yeah, it was 1999. Like it was way, it was years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about love bombing. I just had been brought up with fairy tales and riding off into the sunset with, like the man of your dreams. Like these are the things that I had been programmed with.
Yep.
So when it happened to me, I was like, woohoo, like I, struck gold. Here it is. Right. So the, excessive spending on me, the gifts, I remember he even like bought me on his birthday concert tickets to go with his family. And
Wow.
like he didn't even go. It was like his like female cousins and stuff. And like on his birthday did that for
Nice
me.
of him.
Right. And so like all these things take me on shopping sprees, and we were young, right? So I thought, well, wow, this is amazing. So the fast moving, those are red flags, huge red flags in the beginning. When someone is wanting things, professions of love very early on, we are meant to be, we're going to be together forever. Let's, speed this up, move this along. And then a lot of the like showering, because like obviously showering people with love and affection and attention isn't always love bombing, right? It's when it's combined with this, like, we need to hurry this up. We need to, we are like in love and these like high professions of, like the one, kind of thing. Like that's where you have to be really careful because I mean, I'm a very giving person too. And, I like to give gifts and I like to, be complimentary of people. So I'm not saying that that is in itself a red flag. I'm saying when it's combined with this like kind of sped up thing. So that's how it started, right? That was then shortly into the relationship is when some of the things started to pop up that were like a little concerning, that I knew kind of in my heart were not things I shouldn't overlook, but it was like we were already beyond that because I'd already been so immersed in the love, right? So it was like, well, maybe it was just a mistake and maybe I should just need to forgive that, like still talking to other females and stuff while we were together, even beyond these professions of love. And like, wait a minute, like just different things like that. And I laid the law down and I said like, and I wrote this in my book, if you want to be in a relationship with me, you cannot be talking to these other girls. Like, absolutely not. I will not tolerate that. And
Yeah.
so he was like, okay. And he was like, I won't. And he didn't. And then it was just all about me. Right. So then I was like, oh, there's my confirmation. Like he's choosing me and blah, blah, blah. Right. And so then it was like, okay, what's the next step? And now we need to think about getting engaged. And then we need to think about getting married. And, so within a couple of years, we were married. And I read all about this whole thing in my book because I think it's really important for people to see the progression of how this happens. So for anybody who's thinking about red flags, like if you're starting in a new relationship with somebody, that's what you need to look for is, do they want to make it so quick and so fast? And like all the things are happening together. It's not just one thing, right? There might be a thing that you're like, oh, that's a red flag or, oh, that's a red flag, right? But like, look at the culmination of things as a whole, really.
Okay. Very good. Was there anything else that stood out to you in the beginning?
Yes. So when we were 19 and I wrote this in my book as well. He and I got into an argument with my mother about paying rent, living with her, because I lived with my mom and he didn't think that was acceptable. And my mom wanted me to pay rent to live in her house. And it wasn't like a lot, but she didn't have a lot of money at the time. And I'm living there and I'm an adult and, so that was her rules. And I was probably a little selfish at the time, and like I'm going to school and I have a job and like, why are you making me pay rent? And so he got into a argument with my mom. And essentially that was the kickstart of removing her from my life. And for a really long time, it was him saying, my mom would never do that to me. Your mom doesn't love you. He actually said to my mom, like, do you even love your daughter?
Wow.
And he was 19 years old and she kicked him out of the house and it was just a big fiasco. So I think that, like when somebody is using opportunities to isolate you from your family, that's something to look out for too. Like if they say, oh, I don't like your friends because they're a bad influence on you, or I don't like your mom because she drinks too much alcohol, or I don't like your dad because he he won't open up to me or whatever it might be. Like, I'm just using these as an examples. These people have been in your family or have been, and I'm not saying like there aren't truths to some of the things that a narcissist might say, but they're using it to further
For their own good.
disconnect you
Yeah.
from the people who are your support people. So those are big red flags too. Like, notice if there is that try to pulling you away from people who've always been there for you, because the more they isolate you, the more control that they have, and they can keep you from learning the truth about them, right? Like,
Mhm.
it might even be, I think you need to quit your job because I don't like the people you work with. I don't
Yeah.
want you hanging out with her because she's a bad influence on you, right? Like, and they'll use that to create a wedge between you and the people who could actually help you and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So, at what point did you start noticing some of these red flags, becoming aware of it, and being like, "Wait a minute, what am I doing? This isn't
Well,
right."
I think I always kind of knew, but I didn't know that they were red flags. I didn't even know there was a term called red flags. I think it was just this kind of like gut feeling, and then it was like, ignore it or excuse it, or maybe I'm wrong. And here's the other thing. I was told a lot that I was crazy and that I needed help and that I don't know about people. There was a lot of things that I had been told that made me doubt myself. And then he ended up becoming this kind of authority on my life. So, like, anytime anything would happen, I would consult him. And that really just totally disempowered me. So, I knew these things were happening, but I would like put a blanket over it, or I would like shove it under the rug, or I would like dismiss it because, one, it was too painful to acknowledge or confront. And I knew that if I did, it was going to cause problems between us too. Right. And I wanted to avoid those confrontations and avoid those, fights or arguments and things like that. So those happened all the time, like throughout the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But I didn't know really what it was. I just kind of blamed myself.
I call that keep the peace to avoid the noise.
Yeah, 100%. I did it all the time.
Yeah,
All the time.
I can relate. It was just
Yeah.
easier just to stay
Mhm.
quiet than it
Yep.
was to create that disruption, for sure.
Yeah.
To the
Walking eggshells too.
right? And to the point of not drinking coffee. I mean,
Mhm.
you did your coffee maker. I remember reading that and like, are you kidding? I couldn't function without my coffee. That had to be
Mhm.
so hard.
Yeah, and I didn't really start drinking coffee until I was in my corporate job. So, like, we met at 19. I graduated college, and I ended up getting into a corporate position as a recruiter at a bank. And I loved that job, but a lot of people drank coffee at work, so I started drinking coffee at work. But I didn't drink coffee at home. I just drank it. I go into work and I drink more coffee, and so then when I wanted to start drinking coffee like on the weekends and stuff, it was like, like, no, you're not doing that. Like, you should not be doing that. Like, he couldn't do anything about it when I was at work because he had no
Right.
knowledge of it or control over it. So it became this uh, tug of war, right? Like, between he and I, where he just wanted to have the control
That's
instead of just letting me be, letting me do what I. And now there were so many things that he controlled like that. That's just one example I use in my book to kind of drive home this,
mhm.
because obviously I'm not going to put every single detailed thing that he ever controlled, like how you blink your eyes and how you eat your food and how you
That's right.
clean the house and where you put the milk. Like, I did kind of sprinkle those things in, but like, I'd have so many things that I couldn't include in that book, right? So I just used that one as a specific example because that was kind of a big theme.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think one that many can relate to,
mhm,
because it's one
mhm,
of those things where, it just becomes kind of this fold of isolation, authority, control to the point where, again, you're left either do I fight it? Do I just ignore it because I don't want to deal with it? And it
mhm.
just kind of becomes this pattern that continues and continues and continues, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so, I mean, I know for myself, it was just that feeling of constantly feeling crazy. Like, is this
Mhm.
really happening? Or is this just something I make up in my head? Because anymore, I don't know what's real.
Right. Yeah, that was big. That was big for me too. And
Yeah.
these things that we talk about, like in these like control tactics and things that they use, were just things that um, created more doubt in yourself. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't be drinking coffee, and maybe he is right, and maybe it is bad for me. And, like,
Yeah.
there were just, I mean, I could even say to him, "Look, why is it okay for you to drink bourbon, but I can't have coffee?"
That's right. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And there was, but you can't reason with somebody like that. Like, there's no reasoning with it. Like, I even wrote in my book about how, like, he kept telling me not to put powdered sugar on the French toast. That's
Yeah.
how I ate it growing up. And because when you mix like the butter and the sugar, it's like all gooey and delicious.
Oh, it
And
is.
yeah. And he's like, only use the syrup. Right. And so I'm like, but he's like, it's not healthy for you. And I'm like, I showed him, I literally said, here are the calories, here are the, like, how much sugar. And it was worse. What he
Yeah.
was saying was the syrup. And it was like, he just wouldn't even look at it. He wouldn't need, I'm not even going to look at that. I don't even need to see, like, didn't want to see the proof, didn't want to see the evidence, couldn't say, oh, you're right. Oh, I am wrong.
No, because it becomes more about being right than it is about what is right. Right.
Yes.
It's just feeding that ego within him to make himself feel better.
Yeah.
And it's just the point of, to our point, insanity, right? We just,
Yeah, you can't reason with somebody. You cannot. You can try, but it's never going to work. It's
and
not going to.
it's not. And I love towards the end of the book where you're talking about some of the things and how it affected you, both with like the complex PTSD, the lack of self-trust and self-love, all huge components of this abuse, right? So talk to us a little bit about that. Some of those different symptoms that you started experiencing, what that looked like, how you worked through that.
Okay. So what, after I left, I immediately put myself into therapy. I knew I needed help. So I went to this local therapist. She was amazing. I met with her weekly. I mean, there were probably a few times that I didn't see her every week, but for the most part, I was there every week for like 4.5 years. I was like, I am not going to let this person take any more of me, and I have to fix this. Like, I cannot. So, the CPTSD was something she had brought up to me, and I didn't even know what it was. I'd heard of PTSD because of like, people who have had traumatic experiences, or like people who come back from war and things like that. But I didn't know really what it was or what it meant. But I had been experiencing things and sharing those things with her. And she's like, okay, I know what this is. Right. So having like panic attacks in the parking lot after buying groceries, like, had no idea why I would do that. Like, why would I couldn't even pinpoint it, couldn't figure it out. Being triggered by the garage door opening at the house, when he's not even there, not knowing why I have to be home when he's not in the house that I live in anymore, right? Why do I have this urge to get home? Why do I have this? I've been gone for 2 hours and I like have no reason to be at my house, but I'm like feeling this desire. I need to get home. I need to get home. I need to get home.
Yeah.
Right. All that stuff. These are things that different people will experience in different ways, triggers and things like that come up as a result of being abused like this. And it's really important to understand what those triggers are. And when that comes up for you, it's just a signal for you to pay attention that something is still there that needs help and that needs to be worked out. So it's not like you have to fall into a puddle on the floor, right? When these things happen, it's just really bringing awareness to it and being like, wait a minute, like, what is happening right now? Like, what is this? What is this about? Why am I feeling this way? And like, I think a lot of times people have a hard time, and I had a hard time with this too, distinguishing the difference between a real threat and imagined threat, right?
Absolutely.
Sitting in the house and the garage door goes up. He doesn't live in this house, hasn't lived, right? Like, I moved out. It's not even my old house, but the sound of the garage door opener had triggered me because when he would come home, I'd have to get the food ready. Everything had to be on the table. Had to have the kids ready to go. Like, all that stuff was so much anxiety, and like having him come home already was like creating this like traumatic memory inside of me. So when I would hear it, it's that immediate like trigger about that. Yeah. So having to, okay, is this a real threat or is this an imagined threat? Right. And kind of figuring out what the difference is. Because for everybody, it feels real in the moment. Like, it feels like it's real because it technically, because it's stored inside your body and your brain, your whole body and every part of you believes it's actually a true threat to to your survival in that moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll never forget. I still at times will catch myself apologizing for how much I spent at the grocery store. And I'm like, and my fiance will be like, what are you doing? Like, who cares? And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's just because it's so ingrained in me because for years I would get interrogated about why I spent so much at the grocery store. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is because it was more important to spend money at the bar than it
Mhm.
was on groceries, right?
Right.
And so it was what was a priority for him.
Yeah.
And so even to this day, I still get that response. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I'm sure so many can.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's exactly why I almost had a panic attack in the parking lot because I spent like $300 one day. And this was like 6 months after we'd been together or been separated. And I was like almost in a puddle on the pavement and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, oh, I know why now. It's because I spent that $300 and I normally was supposed to spend $150 for a
Yep.
family of five. And now,
5. Can you
Mhm.
imagine? Family of 5.
Yeah. And I couldn't do it. I literally could not do it. I
No,
couldn't. I just was just not that. I could not do it. I'm like, I need this. I need this. I need this. And I
right.
would hear it. Let me see the receipt. What did you buy? You didn't get you got name brand this. You should have got the cheaper version of it or blah, blah, blah. Like it was just always something. So that CPTSD
Mm,
comes from those experiences that are stored in our bodies that are just trying to protect us and keep us from those things happening again, right? Like,
yeah.
oh, we don't want to have to come home and have a lecture and have like a fight, right? So your brain starts to think, oh, well, I better stick to the $150 versus the $300 or whatever it is.
I don't want to get yelled at, right? I don't want to get yelled at. It's not,
It's a
yeah.
protection mechanism for us.
You do everything just to save yourself from having to have the lecture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But those are also, again, like I said before, when you notice these things happening, it's not that you just need to get through it. Like, oh, I just need to get through this panic attack, or I just need to get through this like uncomfortableness. It's
Yeah.
also paying attention to it so that you can get ahead of it to make sure it doesn't happen again. Right? Like, okay, what can I do to prevent this from happening? Because you don't have to live with CPTSD for your whole life. You don't have to just be like, oh, well, I have CPTSD, so I'm always going to be triggered by the garage door opening. Absolutely not. You can change your brain. You can change your responses to these things. It takes practice, it takes effort and attention, but it's totally possible.
So is that the work you do today? Is
Yeah.
helping women through that process?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Because when I first started out, my main focus was helping people who were being triggered, who couldn't stop thinking about their ex all the time, even if it was like, just like ruminating and thinking about things, like who literally felt like they were just so stuck, couldn't jump the hump, right? Because
Yeah.
I told you before, I had 4.5 years of therapy and my therapist was amazing, but I would beg her for like, what can I do this week? How can, like, give me something to do, give me some action, give me like, how can I practice this? Is there a book I need to read or like action steps I need to take? Like, and that's just part of my personality. Like, I didn't feel good about just sitting in her office for an hour and then waiting a week to sit in her office again. Like, what is this doing for me? How is this actually helping me? And so I landed on subconscious reprogramming by accident I mean, I don't really believe in accidents, but I say that because I wasn't like I was looking for it. I just had been listening to a podcast and I was listening to this podcast and it was like really striking some major like lights flickering in my mind. And like, I was like, oh
Oh,
my
she
gosh.
gets me. She gets me. Like this
Yes,
makes total sense. Like, whoa.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the time my book had been out and all of that. So I emailed this woman or messaged her, I can't remember, on Instagram or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing. Can I put one of your episodes on my website to help women who read my book? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I put it out there and we just developed a relationship, like, an internet relationship. And one day, as we were chatting back and forth, she was like, have you ever thought about being a coach? And I maybe had thought about it, but I never really like considered it fully. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe. And she's like, well, why don't we get on a call and talk about it? Because I train people in this method with these tools. And I had already been using her tools as I'm listening to the podcast. I listened to 100 episodes twice through on her podcast because it was that good.
Are you
Yeah.
allowed to share the podcast?
Oh, yeah. It's called, right now it's called Your Light is Your Legacy. But when it was called, it was Return to You. And she's changed it because when it was returned to you, it was all about like the stuff that I do, the recovering. So you could go back if you did listen to it in this context, you'd want to go back to like episode 1 and then start, because it switches to now she's helping business coaches to
Okay.
train them in the methodology to help their clients. So it's got a different vibe to it, but you can go back and deep dive the old ones and still listen to the stuff that I was listening to that helped me. And then I, on my podcast, do that too. So I teach you the subconscious stuff and how to make the changes on my podcast, which is called the Be a Better You podcast. So it's very similar, but that's what happened and how I became a coach. And the process that we use that she developed is called rapid reprogramming. So that's where you actually use neuroplasticity, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and like brain science tools to retrain your brain, right? So it's not like a one-time thing. You like sometimes you go to like EMDR and like things like that, and you can get your support there. But this is like you practice this just like going to the gym, and the more you practice it, the better you get. So I'll give you like an example of one that helped me. I was getting triggered so bad by my ex's emails and text messages and our family wizard messages, right? So I would get this horrible stomach drop every time I would see. And again, I've been in therapy for 4.5 years. You'd think that I'd be okay. No, I would still get this like gut punch stomach drop every time, just seeing the notification. That's it.
It's a good point to make, though, because I think a lot of women and our listeners are thinking, okay, so I go through the healing process, I'm done, and we're good to go, right? Little do we know it's a continuous evolution that we're going through, that we continue to work on, right?
Yes, 100%. So, therapy is great. I don't have anything bad to say about therapy there, but for me, it was like I didn't have the tools. Like, give me the tools. Like it wasn't moving me in the direction that I wanted to go. So, using the tools that I learned from her, I was able to in 3 weeks erase that gut punch.
Wow.
I literally remember I was working it and working it and working it and working it for 3 weeks. And then one day, out of the blue, he messaged me and I felt nothing. I was like, oh, it happened. Like, and I don't get it anymore ever. Like if I get one from him, I don't feel a thing. And that the reason why is because I had, and I'll just give you a little insight into this, I had subconscious beliefs on a deep level that I wasn't aware of that were contributing to that feeling, right? It wasn't just he messaged me and I immediately get the gut punch. No, you're forgetting their brain is part of the process, right? So what was happening that I was missing was that I had beliefs like, I can't handle this. I'll never be able to fight him. He's going to try to manipulate me. He's going to want something that I won't be able to deal with again. This is too hard. Like I had these deep subconscious beliefs that I needed to reprogram.
And that's where the lack of self-trust was, right?
Yeah.
Like not being able to, and that's where you say on page 251, but what you don't realize is it's not the external factors or people you don't trust, it's yourself.
It is. 100%.
And it's so true.
Yeah. It was so like just expansive and eye-opening to know that like, I just got to trust me. And some people are like, but how do you do that? How do you trust yourself? You start on a subconscious level, because go back to your childhood and think about what the things that you were programmed with and you were taught. And you like, if your mom, let's say that you were just doing this, you created this dance that you were going to do. And you're like, Mom, come watch my dance. And your mom's like on the phone and drinking her little Coke, honey, like whatever, blah, 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 not really paying attention to you or whatever that might be. Gives you just like, okay, like or whatever, right? Yeah. These things happen and that influences your perception of yourself, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I need to try harder, or maybe I need to, be better, like whatever those things are. I'm using this as an example,
100%.
But this is the stuff that creates the subconscious. Your subconscious is like 95%. And it's below the surface, like an iceberg. So you're only really like, if you're like, but I am good. Yeah, I am good enough. And I know that I am good enough and everybody's worthy, right? That's only running 5% of the show, right? We got to get down below the surface and figure out what's actually creating that. Because what was creating that stomach drop for me were the things that I was believing about my capabilities to deal with somebody like him. And I
Okay.
didn't believe it.
So how do we get below? How do we get below the surface? Tell
Okay,
us.
so it's not as hard as people think. Like, it's not like this deep, dark cave and you got to go to the past and dig up all these things, right? Literally, you and I could have a conversation right now and I could just ask you some questions and I'd know your subconscious beliefs like within a few minutes.
Stop.
Seriously, it's that simple. It's literally me knowing how to ask you the questions in the right way. And I'm taking notes and I'm hearing what you're saying. Here are some key things that you'll figure out pretty easily. So if you know that, like, when you talk to people, you say a lot like, oh, he shouldn't act like that. Or, oh, I should be able to handle this. Shoulds, the should words are subconscious beliefs. That's a really easy way for you to know what your subconscious beliefs are. Because anything that we believe that other people should be acting like, that we should be acting like, that the world should be acting like, is our belief system, right? That's what we believe. And when reality is not that, that's when we suffer, right? He shouldn't be texting me this often. He shouldn't be annoying me like this. Well, maybe he should be. Is it helping you in some sort of way? Are you getting stronger, right? So we're just like reframing the things. But in order to find it, you can journal, you can write down, like when you get frustrated or you get angry or you get sad, any emotion that comes up, that's your cue. You feel that emotion and that's your cue.
So why is writing such a powerful way to bring up the subconscious thoughts?
So writing, because it slows down your subconscious mind, because there's more effort in you having to just, then think it, but actually think it and then put it on paper, right? It's you, not even typing isn't as good as handwriting because you're slowing down your subconscious mind in that way. So really the most important thing is to get really relaxed first. So you got to get super duper relaxed. If you even have like theta brainwave music, you can put in your AirPods, things like that will help you slow down your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, you can do this verbally. Like if you were to call your mom or your sister and be like, oh, I'm so mad. I'm so frustrated with my ex and da-da-da, and he's doing this and this and this and this and all these things, right? You're like venting. If you take notes while you're venting, you'll know what your subconscious beliefs are too. I can't handle this, need to, won't, the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, all those are words that indicate what your beliefs are. Because all a belief is something that's not 100% true for 100% of people, 100% of the time. It's a belief. That's it.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it really, really is. And then when you realize that and you're like, oh, wait, like, for example, I'll just give you an easy example. Like right now we're recording this podcast and I can hear the construction people outside. I'm in a new neighborhood and I can hear them hammering. I can hear the trucks. I don't know if everybody else can hear it, but hopefully they can't. But I can hear it, right? But I could be like, oh, they shouldn't be working this time of day. Oh, this is so annoying, right? This shouldn't be happening. But it is happening. Me fighting reality, I'm going to lose every time.
100%.
Every time.
That's right.
And do I prefer peace or do I want to fight reality? That's the choice.
That's good. That's really good. But what makes fighting reality different now for you than it did in your marriage?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I didn't know anything about that. Now, here's the big distinguishing factor. When I'm talking about this stuff now, it's the healing part, right? You can't do this when you're in the midst of abuse, okay? Because what will happen then is you'll be like, oh, it's okay that he mistreats me. And oh, it's okay that he's being bad to me. And it's okay that he's cheating and lying and all these things, right? Because that's the reality. Like I need to make that very, very, very clear. If you're in the midst of abuse, right? And you know these things are wrong, it's time to make a plan and it's time to execute and put yourself first and put your kids first, right? That's what you need to do. Okay. But once you're out and, you were talking about like the CPTSD, the healing part, right? And getting triggered and like still getting gut punches and having all these things happen. That's the healing that I needed. So that's the big difference here because you can't put your hand on a hot stove and then be like, oh, I'm going to try to heal it while it's still on the hot stove. you got to get it off the hot stove and you got to start healing it. And you got, right. That's the main difference here. You
I just
can't
think
be
it's
healing.
important to note the difference because
Absolutely.
a lot of women are in so much denial,
Mm-hmm.
right? And listen, I don't exclude myself from that. I was very much in denial when I was in the trenches of all of that. But I think it's important to know we have to become aware enough to get the hell out of there before we can even start this process. Because while we're in the thick of it, we can't do both at the same time. Both can't be true, right?
I agree 100% because awareness is the first step to getting out and it's the first step to healing, right? You can't be in a toxic relationship and not know that it's toxic, right? That's how I got out, was because I was made aware that this is emotional abuse, this is narcissism, this is evil, like this is bad. And I didn't know. For 20 years I had no clue. But when I knew, then it was like, oh, okay, now I can make myself a way out. Then you also, again, for the healing, you have to be aware too. You have to be aware of what's going on up here in your brain. What are the thoughts that are going through your head? And, when we were talking about journaling and like venting and figuring out what those subconscious beliefs are, what is really, really key here is paying attention to your emotions, number one, right? Like the emotion is the signal. The emotion is what tells you something's off. That's your alarm that's blaring. That's going, okay, I'm pissed right now. Or, okay, I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling really defensive, or I'm feeling sad. That's just the thing that's telling you to pay attention. Then you figure out, okay, well, what am I thinking about? What are the thoughts going through my head when I'm feeling like this? Those are your subconscious beliefs. Yeah.
So the
That's how you get there.
emotions, the emotions kind of start that process of becoming aware of what the subconscious belief is saying to us.
Yes, yes. Because a lot of people just feel their emotions or stuff their emotions, experience them, and let's kind of move on, right? But really, the emotions are there to tell you something. They're giving you information, and we're not paying attention. So we just keep feeling these same emotions on repeat because we're never getting below the surface and figuring out the root. The root is the beliefs that are creating the emotions. It's not the other way around. A lot of people think, oh, I can't control my emotions. No, you can't control your emotions until you know what's creating them, which are your subconscious beliefs.
Yes. Okay. So you're going through this process. You're becoming aware, right? Because you're listening to this podcast. You start going into the coaching realm. You're like, oh man, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
How long and what was the process from there to fully loving and accepting yourself?
It didn't take long. It
Okay.
honestly did not take long. I mean, I was working a lot of things at one time because I wasn't just saying, oh, I'm going to work on self love right now, or oh, I'm going to work on releasing anger, or I'm going to go work on releasing guilt. Like I was doing a lot of different things at a lot of different times and also simultaneously. But I would say it probably took me, once I started with the podcast and like doing that work, it probably only took me a few months to like really feel like worthy and good enough. And like, I remember my boyfriend saying to me one time, and this was before I had even started this, he said, because I was so worried about what other people thought about me and like, what are they going to say? And he said, and I won't curse on your podcast, but he said, just say out loud, I don't give a fuck. And I was like, I can't say that. And I was like, I can't say it. He's like, just say it. I'm like, I can't say it. I literally could not verbalize it. I could not get it out of my.
Why?
I had such deep rooted beliefs that I did care about what people thought. And it did matter other people's opinions about me. And I did need other people's approval. So that was the root of why I couldn't behave and speak that out. But once I started after like learning about this and started reprogramming it, I was like, I really don't give a fuck what anybody says about me or what anybody thinks about me. I literally do not care. I don't.
Okay, so you believe doing this reprogram of the subconscious mind helped you going from caring what everybody thought to not caring what anybody thought.
Well, I wouldn't say anybody. I care about like the people who are important to me in my life, like my boyfriend, my children, my parents. Like obviously I'm not going to be out there doing things to hurt people and be like, I don't really care what you think, right? Not like that. That's not what I mean. I mean, when I've got the flying monkeys and the people from my past who are, talking bad about me, saying things about me. Like I would previously have been like in a mess. Like, why do they think that about me? And like, oh, this is horrible. And like, I'm a good person. Why do they lie? And, da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't care. I literally don't care. Think what you think. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. That's on you. You have those feelings and thoughts. That's your thing to deal with. If it's bothering you that I am the way I am, like I got 10 pages of written testimony from my ex's family and all his brothers and his parents and his wife about all the things they think I should do and how I should behave.
Stop.
And I read every single line and I laughed. It did not affect me at all. And lies and like she's manipulating the children and she's telling them this and she don't let them do this and she should let them do that. And I just was like, you know what? Actually, this is sad for you. Like that's how I was thinking, like that you are so caught up in what I should be doing and it's bothering you that bad that you were able to write collectively 10 full pages to my attorney.
It's almost like you pity them, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, wow.
Like, is really your life that sad that you have to just focus on what I should be doing instead of living your life?
Exactly. But here again, those are their subconscious beliefs. It's their programming, right? I should be taking them to church is what they think. I shouldn't be letting them stay up late and watch TV. I should be, right? Because those are their beliefs.
The shoulds. There's the shoulds, right?
Pay attention
instead of, guess what? I don't have to let that control me anymore.
Exactly. And I don't care what they think about it. So
I know so many women that would love to be able to do that.
Amazing feeling, I have to tell you. It is fantastic.
It's freeing, right? You know, peace, finally.
Yes. I don't even, it's weird because like looking back at the person I used to be, I don't recognize that person. Like, I mean, I know who she is, but like, I don't relate to her anymore. It's very weird, like thinking that I used to be that way, like sitting on the bathtub crying, thinking I'm going to hurt people's feelings if I tell them I can't come to the party. And like, that used to be me. And now I'm like, somebody says something, I'm like, no, sorry, I can't make it. No, thanks, whatever. Right. And I don't feel any bad. I don't feel guilt about it. Like, this is my life. I've not been able to live my life for 20 years. I was living how someone else thought I should live. You know, when somebody controls you that much, that's kind of the shift you take.
I know you're a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Help us understand that transformation you went through and how that impacted your children, from seeing you care about what everybody thought to just being this empowered woman that took back your control and said, you know what, I'm living for me.
I have a great story about this. So my oldest daughter, she's 17, and ever since that child has been born, she has been the spunkiest little thing. Like, I can remember before she could even crawl, being on her belly trying to reach a toy. You know how like they kind of scoot on their belly, and she just would have like an absolute fit. Like, she was probably only, I don't know, 6 months or 4 months. I mean, tiny, and like screaming because she couldn't get that toy. Like, she's so frustrated. And her whole life, just sassy little attitude. And like, I just knew, and some people would say like, she's very free spirited or whatever. And that is true. She's very spunky. I recently, this was probably maybe like, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago, she has been going through some stuff and with friends and school and things. And she had a conversation with her ex-boyfriend's mom about some things, and I won't go into the details, but basically confronted this woman and had basically a toe-to-toe on the front porch of this lady's house. My daughter, who's like 17. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
About the mother, like talking bad about my daughter. And like, she was like, I'm not dealing with this. So my daughter's telling me this story, and I was like in awe of her. I was like, I could have never done that at your age.
That's right.
Never. I can't even believe that you were able to do that. I was like, how, just like, tell me how. And she goes, I watched you, Mom.
Oh my God. I have goosies right now. I have goosies on my arm.
I was like, I never did that though. I never did that. She's like, it doesn't matter, Mom. I've seen the things that you've done.
Yeah.
And just brought tears to me. Yeah.
as a mom, I
Yeah.
understand how powerful that is. And yeah, I get it.
You
Because
don't realize what they see.
that's right. You don't. But it's why we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we want to teach our children, right? That we don't have to become our story,
No.
right? That we can create a different version of that story for ourselves. And in doing that, wow, what a radical difference you made,
Yeah.
not only in your life, your children's life, and all of those around you. So you should
Yeah,
be so
it's
proud.
amazing. It's fantastic. And like you don't realize like at the time, like I can remember, and I think I wrote this in my book too, is like taking the bullets from the divorce because she was the one that said, "You ruined my life, mom." That's the daughter that said that.
Yeah,
Right. And so I'm sitting there like taking these bullets from her because what am I going to say? She's 11 years old. Oh, your dad did this and your dad, I wasn't going to go there.
yeah,
Right. I'm just like, she'll see, she'll learn, she'll see from my actions, she'll see from his actions, she'll know the truth eventually. And she does.
that's right.
And there's been many, many times where like I refuse to engage with my ex's family. And over the years, I've had to see them at sporting events, at school functions, like, and they're a big family and it's me and that family. I mean, for this whole time, my boyfriend's lived in a different state. So he's not even around for these things. Yeah. So
Oh,
it's me. It's not like my mom would come with me, like somebody, okay, me and my mom up against these like 15 to 20 extended these events, right? So I'm like, I don't engage with them. That's by choice because here's the thing. Someone said to me, actually a therapist, a court ordered therapist said to me, well, like basically you should talk to your ex and you should acknowledge them and this and that and the other. And I said, would you expect a kid who's being bullied on a playground to be friendly with his bully?
that's right.
And
I
she
love
was like, cat got her tongue at that point, right? So I was teaching my kids in those moments, you don't have to be nice to people or friendly or go out and like I'm not being rude to them. I'm just not acknowledging them. I'm
that's right.
not going out of my way to wave and say hi and how are you and like have these
And take care
conversations.
of your feelings and keep up an image for
Right.
what?
Why? I'm showing them you can stand up to people,
That's right.
and you don't have to do it in a confrontational way. You can just be like, I don't want to be involved with you.
That's right. And what a
So
beautiful thing that is.
yeah. So even though my daughter is very like, she has her own personality, she's always had it. It was really refreshing to hear that for
Oh,
sure.
I can't even imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, what a moment. It's,
Mhm.
oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's a big moment. And it's just a big testament to all the work you've done on
Yeah.
yourself. So proud
Hard.
moment right there.
Yeah. It's hard being a mom of kids when you're not being divorced, right?
Yeah.
It's hard being a mom when you're divorced. And it's really hard being a mom when you're divorced from somebody who's abusive.
We could do a whole nother show on co-parenting with a narcissist because that in itself is it's really hard. It's
Yeah,
really hard,
it is.
because you don't get to just say bye, walk away and just be done, right? Because when you have children, there's always that relationship to some extent. And it's how do you manage that in a way that's healthy for you and your children?
Yeah,
You
for
know.
sure.
So yeah, maybe we'll have to have you back and talk through that.
I'd
That we
like to talk all about that. I have lots of stories and things to share.
Oh, me too. Me too. So I want to give a chance to ask a few questions because I love to do this at the end. Just ask a few rapid fire questions. Definitely want to have everyone understand where they can find you and your work because I know that will definitely be something that will be of interest. So tell us a little bit. I don't know about you. I'm a little bit of a reader, if you can't tell, through my pictures here. But I love books. It's how I've learned a lot from my own experiences and what got me where I am today. I believe reading has been a huge help in all of that. So would you agree? And what are some books that have helped you through this process?
Yeah, for sure. I have so many book recommendations I can give people. And depending on kind of where you're at, what stage of the journey that you're at, I love to read too. And reading like you was very, very helpful to me. One of the first books that I ever read to heal from this was Healing from Hidden Abuse by Shannon Thomas. It was an amazing book and I absolutely loved it. But as I started to progress in my healing, of course, I'm going to say my book because my book, I love my book, When Tears Leave Scars.
I
But
gotta tell you, it's so good. Definitely get it. When Tears Leave Scars, You Will Not
thank
Be
you.
Sorry. Such a great book. You did an amazing job on that.
Thank you. But, as I progress more on my healing journey, one of my absolute favorite books is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. It is such a good book. It
Such
is so good. Have you read that one?
I
Oh, I
have.
love that book. It is
Let
so
me-
good.
Oh,
I
I
have,
have it right here.
yeah, it is fantastic. And it
It's
will help you. Like it will help you really. And it's not literally about like not being you, right? It's more about the patterns, the habits of things that aren't serving you and how to break those habits, which I love.
great book recommendation for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Those are awesome. And I'll definitely put these in the notes so everybody can reference them.
Yeah.
What about a favorite quote?
So it was interesting because at the beginning of our conversation, you said, you mentioned the journey of 1,000 steps. And my favorite quote is the Martin Luther King Jr. quote that you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And I heard that once and I was like, oh, that is such an amazing thing because a lot of times people get overwhelmed by the journey and they think, oh my gosh, this is too much. I can't handle it. It's going to be, you don't have to see the whole journey. You don't have to see the top of the mountain, even. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just got to take one step. And that I can't speak enough about because action will give you that clarity that you need. Action will help propel you in the right direction, right? So maybe you take that first step and it's not the right place. Maybe you have to take a different step and go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I love that quote because I think it's really empowering to know that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know where it's going to end up. You just got to take one step. That's it.
I love that. And I say the same thing all the time. You don't have to know it all, right? Like you have to know your why and the how will be figured out,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And absolutely, I so agree with that. And the big step is usually the first step,
Mhm.
right? Because that's the one that creates the most impact just by taking that first step. But by doing that, boy, it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah.
Just
Even with writing my book, I didn't know how to write a book. I never wrote a book before. I've never been an author. I was like, but I knew I had to do it. And I had a why, like you said, and the how just kind of fell into place.
it just happens,
Yeah.
right? It just starts happening because that's
Yeah.
the magic of the universe and how
I
things work.
just I just got out my computer and started writing and I ordered a book on Amazon on how to write memoirs and I was like, okay, well
Let's do this.
here we go.
You're an action taker, Allison. You're an action taker. I love that. We've talked a little bit about self-love and definitely a foundation to all of this. Tell us some of your self-love practices that you have taken and that are so important to you in your own practice of self-love.
So I do different things for my own self-love, but what I want to say before I tell you what those things are is I think that it's really important to understand that self-love isn't a one size fits all or, oh, because Allison does this, I should do it. I think self-love should be about what do you feel loved when somebody does for you?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you feel loved? Because if it makes Liz feel loved that when she gets flowers, but I'm like, I don't really feel that. Why would I go buy myself flowers? Right. So I like to do things for myself that I would like other people to do for me. So if I want people to talk nicely to me, then I'm going to talk nicely to myself. That's how I show myself love. If I like receiving flowers, then I'll just go buy myself flowers. If I want somebody to surprise me with a cake, I'll just go buy my own cake.
I know I loved that post on Instagram, by the way. I thought that was
Yeah,
amazing.
I just went out and bought myself a cake because I was like, wait, I'm going to celebrate myself. This is amazing. I'm getting myself a cake. Right?
I
So
love it.
it's not one size fits all. It has to be what do you want other people to do for you? And how can you find ways to do that for yourself? So I do things for myself, like I spend time with myself. I will literally say, I need an hour to go in my room, read a book, do my journaling, whatever, right? I need that time for myself. I know what I need. I know what helps me. Or maybe go for a walk or maybe it's something like buying myself something that I've been wanting for a really long time, or like I said, talking nice. There's so many things. Like I'm not like limited. I just kind of think in the moment, like, what would I want? I
What?
did this one time. So I don't know if you saw this particular reel, but I have a birthday and Christmas is on the same day for me. So my birthday is on Christmas Day.
Oh,
So this past Christmas, my kids were with their dad. My boyfriend wasn't in town. My mom and all of them have already had their own things going on that day. So I was by myself on Christmas and on my birthday.
oh,
Yeah. So a lot of people had that same reaction, like, oh, let's say you, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, this is amazing. I get to myself. I'm going to the store. I'm buying my favorite foods. I'm getting all the things that I want. I bought myself a cake. I'm a cake person, so clearly, like everybody knows that now. All these things that I've done for myself, right, on that day to make it special. I turned on Christmas movies, propped my feet up, did all that stuff.
I love that. I
It
love
was fantastic. It was a great day.
And it's a good reminder, right? Because I always say to my ladies, right, you have to know what you want to get what you want, right? So if you don't know, go figure it out. Because once you know, then you can start taking action around that. And that is what's so important, right? We don't have to rely on other people for the things we need and want.
Exactly.
We can do that for ourselves. And that
100%.
is very much self-love. So thank
Yeah.
you for that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love
Yeah.
that.
I will say too, like someone asked me one time, they were like, well, how do I love myself? Like, I really want someone to like physically touch me or massage me. I'm like, go get a massage.
100%.
Yeah, do something for your body, right?
Your body. Yes, absolutely. There's all kinds of things you can do. And I love that you say eat the cake, because it is something I say all the time. And I just laugh at myself. I'm like, just eat the cake. If you want a piece of cake, don't deprive yourself of the cake. You're just making it worse. Just go eat the cake, right?
Exactly.
It's so important. So, Allison, tell everyone where they can go and find you.
I spend most of my time on Instagram. I do have a presence on Facebook, but if you go to Instagram, you can find me at Allison K. Dagney is my handle. I also have a website with lots of resources, free things out there. Obviously, the coaching opportunities that I have at whentearsleavescars.com. You can find all that on my website as well. Anybody who wants to just ask me questions about my book or about my coaching or anything, you can always just DM me. Like I have my phone on me all the time. I don't like have like somebody who's managing my Instagram account. Like I'll just respond to you.
It would be nice if we did, right? But yeah.
I want that connection with people. Like I want to hear from, and people do, like people will email me or message me and be like, oh my gosh, I read your book and thank you so much. Like I love hearing from people. So if you get a chance to read it or if you have questions or anything, feel free to just hit me up in the DMs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how we connected, is I did do that because I read your book and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to Allison.
Glad you did. I am so glad you did.
Oh, me too. And thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I know this has helped many, so thank you. Really appreciate
you having me. I really appreciate you having me, allowing me to share my story and bring this stuff to awareness for people, because it's really important.
It's so important. And, I know we both want women to be able to step outside of that pain and discomfort and truly live for them, find themselves, and know what it's like to have peace and happiness, right? So thank you. And to everyone else, thank you so much for being here today with us. We really appreciate you choosing the Self-Love Lounge to listen to today. And thanks for being the best part of my day. I love you all to the moon and back and can't wait to be with you again next week. Bye for now.